Chris, I am very happy to have you back on our show, the Rui Lopez. No, wait, I'm sorry, it's the Sicilian Dragon.
Oh my
Pardon me.
gosh. Thanks very much for that. You wouldn't see me dead on a show like that. Right. Okay. We No, this is, of course, the Dragon Monthly, everybody. Welcome here for some more thrills and spills. So today, this is what we've got for you today. Something piqued my interest following on from what we did last month, actually. There was a double header. I know it's kind of speedy games, but a double header between Ian Nepomniachtchi, World Championship challenger, of course, and Arjun Erigaisi, of course, the super talented Indian player, championing the black cause of the Sicilian Dragon. And there were two games that they played. And I could not resist looking at those two games and investigating those two games, particularly as one of them followed on exactly from what I'd spoke about last month. And also something was a little bit new, something never really seen before, but I could easily see why the odd club player might have done it. So when I say never been seen before, it may have been seen. Good grief, we're doing a lot of poetry today. In club player chess. Anyway, with less waffling, I'm going to get straight on with some moves. How's about that?
Yeah, and thank you, Arjun. If you're watching this, as you probably are, since you're playing this in Blitz games, thanks for viewing our show. We're happy to entertain you too.
Absolutely. So here we have, so we've got our good old favourite Sicilian Dragon, Yugoslav attack. Let's whiz through, and we have the 9 castles variation. Okay, probably the most popular variation amongst club players because there's probably slightly less to learn from a white perspective than the bishop c4 lines, which are traditionally more tricky, more complicated, more tactical. But still, we all know by now that d5 is probably black's best move here, striking out in the center. It's a pawn sacrifice. We've been over this, of course, on several occasions before. But last week, our viewers may remember that we looked at this variation here where white takes here, which to me, generally, isn't normally a good thing to do because you've granted black a half-open file and nice support on the center. But the problem is, let me just rewind a move. If white wants to do some things like this, he can't negate what's going on in the middle of the board. So he releases a spot of tension there and then carries on with the move bishop h6. And the intent is fairly clear. He's eliminating the dragon bishop as white, and then he's going to look to swing down the h-file if possible to open up that h-file and help deliver checkmate. And one of the other key features, of course, is this pawn here has the ability to advance here, which will budge what might potentially be a key defender of the h7 square. So that's what makes this position, it's quite tense. There's a lot of tension in the middle of the board here. Quite popular system for white players, fashionable at the moment. So black players need to be very much aware of it. But nevertheless, I think black's doing quite well, actually. I quite like this. So let's just talk about what we've seen this, I believe, twice already.
At least, yes. This is our 12th month anniversary, as all of you viewers already have seen. Yeah, it's 1 year since we started in November, like almost.
Oh, no, it's so lovely of you to remember our anniversary.
And I brought a little present for you. It's no present.
Thank you very much. Yeah. No hand it over. Right now, okay. So here we have it. So bishop h6. So in both cases, black has previously black has taken this, and this is what we're going to look at again. Now, some might say, whoa. Do you really want to be luring the queen down to your own king? But on the other hand, it lures it away from the defense. And of course, the other point is that you're removing the queen from helping to attack d5. So we're not going to have to worry about losing that pawn anymore. Queen takes. Now, this is what you were saying. This is where we looked at a game with black playing the move e5 here. Well, that's one game we certainly looked at. I quite like that move, actually, because there's no better way to say thou shall not pass than blocking that pawn in its tracks and stopping it from moving. So we did spend a little bit of time. I quite like that system, actually, but perhaps more exciting is the lines where black goes for a little bit of an attack. And I have to say, the main game that we're going to feature, it is just shockingly good from a black perspective, in actual fact. So we're going to see just how that b file can be utilized to create a successful attack. So the question is, if we're going to attack b2, how are we going to do it? Well, obviously, the rook's going to want to come to b8. And in this position, then, there's generally two main moves, and that's the queen going to b6 or the rook to b8. Now, as with last month, we're going to look at the move rook b8. But I just like to do another little comparison here and talk about the move queen b6. So there's advantage and disadvantage about queen b6. You could say, well, aren't they going to transpose anyway? The advantage of this move is after the move e5, which White's looking to do anyway, budging this knight, knight d7, there is no opportunity for White to do a rook swinger because, of course, the queen is covering that square on d4. So there's no opportunity for that. We do get similar themes aside from that, which is the key theme that I'm sure you remember only too well, Arnold, which is when White plays the move g4, looking to budge this bishop and then take off here and get an attack down here. Black has the sneaky move pawn to f6. Do you remember that?
Beautiful. Yes, yes. And this is so important and crucial.
This is such a key move. Now, the point is, in this position here, actually, theory recommends that probably White should just drop their queen back to f4. It's kind of complicated. I still think Black's fine. But you may recall that in last month's game, White tried exactly the same move, but when Black had played rook b8 instead of queen b6. And in that particular game, Black was able to move their queen up to d6, threatening all sorts of embarrassing things on the White queen. That is just clearly better for Black. So this whole line with queen f4 is basically redundant if Black plays the rook b8 maneuver, move order, rather than queen b6. The other thing I should say about queen b6, of course, others will say, whoa. Doesn't White have more pieces on that square here now? Can't White just win a pawn? And the answer is yes. So, for example,
if you say it like this, yes.
E takes d5, rook b8 attacks the pawn. This is always going to be an issue. B3. So even if we just had straightforward taking and White winning a pawn, still I think Black gets quite a lot of compensation here because you're going to be able to utilize these half-open files against the king. So White could grab that pawn. I wouldn't really recommend it. So we're probably, what it means is we would have this e5 move, just as we've seen before with the queen coming back to f4. That's probably the main line there. Now, what else was I going to say? Yeah, I was going to mention something else here. So yeah, this is, well, let's just see if we can do this. So yeah. Okay, let's keep going with this move, e5. So I want to spend a little bit of time just looking at this sidelines, these other variations here, because our main game is so short and sweet. It's unbelievable. So we're talking around the other thing. I just want all our viewers to get to grips with this system, understand all the intricacies and all that. So pawn to e5, knight d7, h4, here we have it. Knight takes, h5, bishop f5, g4. Then we have pawn to f6. So we know that the pawn can't take the bishop because then Black will play g5, incarcerating the queen and the knight coming back to f7.
I need to ask one question about the f6 move. Everybody who is a bit better in chess, who is familiar with the dragon, knows about the f6 move, right? It's a
if they didn't before, right? They should do now. Yeah.
Yes. Just wanted to make it clear because it is such a nice move, which is like so much theory that I just wonder how many games have been played with this variation, but it's probably a lot because it is kind of,
we're not talking thousands though. We're not talking that. Well, obviously we're just talking about main databases. Probably in club chess it's probably been played lots and lots and lots, but in main games we're talking more like hundreds than thousands really. So it's not, bishop h6 still isn't the main line. It's just currently quite fashionable at the moment, really.
Gotcha.
So, but this is such an important. But Black needs to know this idea because essentially what's happened is White has sacrificed his e pawn, but he's forced the knight to come off a track where it's no longer protecting h7. So it is super, super important to understand that. But of course, it's quite nice, isn't it? If you can, anyway, if you can track that quick, right? So, so here we go. Let's come here. F5, f6. And the queen comes back. So, for example, just to go on a little bit further, we have variations like this: rook a b8, attacking the b2 pawn. And now you might say, "Whoa, yeah, but Chris, come on, let's get real. Can't we just run away?" For example, and you say, "Well, no, actually you can't, because after the pawn takes the bishop, which admittedly was going to help to deliver check further pain on c2 check, actually black has this really neat move, rook to b4, hitting the queen, and then the rook's going to be able to join the attack over here on d4. So that's really bad news as well. So you can't just, so after b3 here, if we're back to this, white, so white can't take this bishop and allow b2 to fall because of that rook b4 to d4 maneuver. So let's just see. So supposing b3, so one line which I found, this is quite interesting, really funny as well. How about this? G5 anyway. You say, what on earth do you think? What on earth do you think you're doing there? The queen, what's going to happen there? Then queen here, check. The king runs away. And now an incredibly sneaky move.
Check.
Rook f7.
It's not a check.
And you say,
Rook
well,
F7.
what sort of sneaky move is that? And the idea is, the threat is to go e6. The queen has got nowhere to go to. And of course, when the queen takes the pawn, the knight can give a little discovered check, a little check somewhere, and a discovered attack, winning that queen. And you could say, yeah, but what was the idea of rook f7? Well, very simply, so that when white takes that pawn, it's not check. What a sneaky idea that is.
Well,
so anyway, it's a bit more complicated than that, but that's one of the bit more complicated than that.
That is so cool, yeah.
So that is pretty cool. So basically coming back to the point here. We know in this position, black can play e5 to block the eve pawn. He can go queen b6, and he can play rook b8. So rook b8 is the move that was played in two, not one, but two of these blitz games between Nepomniachtchi and Erigaisi. And here we have e5, knight d7. Now, okay, so here's what we're going to do. So in this particular position here, have you got any, what would you suggest some moves? Give us some moves. Okay, how about this?
For white, of course. Now
let's not ruin it. So the idea is, let me tell you, I'm going to tell you the two main moves that have been played here. So the two main moves that we've been seeing are h4, going for the h5, and then the little attack, and rook d4 to swizzle over there to h4. But white came up with a different idea. I don't know if this was planned or just on the spur of the moment, and he decided in this particular main game to play rook e1 to look after that pawn. Now, seems between you and me, obviously on our listeners, seems a bit slow to me to be making a move like that, but that's what he did. But not before having tried, of course, h4. Now, let's just talk a little bit about this. This is the main variation. h4, knight takes pawn, h5, bishop f5, g4, guess what? f6 again. And we know, of course, that the move queen f4, as played last month, is no good because then black can play queen to d6. So we had this last time around, threatening these horrendous kind of knight d3 moves. And if the king b1, then we can even go rook takes pawn check, followed by knight d3.
Beautiful.
That's what we covered last month.
And that's what Dragon players love.
And that's what Dragon players like. We'd imagine most players would love that position. Now,
especially Dragon players.
Yeah. But so the queen, in the other game that they played, the queen came back to e3, which is a much better move. But then, okay, so now, of course, we have the situation where we do need to move our bishop because the bishop is under attack. But this is the key idea. Now, after page takes g6, if we just recaptured, of course, the queen would return to h6 and it would do its damage down there. But the move queen b6, and this is what I speculated. I've speculated a little bit previously on my site about this, about essentially an endgame where the queens get swapped off and white wins this pawn. But in this particular game, they actually played out this endgame. So white is temporarily a pawn up, but it seems quite likely this pawn is going to drop off fairly soon. And in actual fact, king h8, I think, is absolutely fine with the intention of winning it back that way. King g7. And they had a game which essentially just followed exactly this path that I'm putting on the board here. And yeah, it's just Well, eventually the game ended in a draw, but I mean, black is obviously absolutely fine in this position here. And that's because I think that's the whole queen b6 move. So this is the key point. If the queen had returned, let's just make sure we've got this all under control. Returning to this particular position. The pawn can't take the bishop because of g5 incarcerating. If white plays h takes g6, the bishop is going to drop back to recapture, and then we're covering h7 fine. So the queen has to move. We know queen to f4 is a bit ropey because of queen d6, as in our game last month. So queen b6, queen e3 is the only real move. Then we have to move the attacked bishop. We can't just go queen b6 because we'd end up losing a piece. Then he's obviously going to go hg to open up the h file. Then the queen b6 moves appear. And this is absolutely the point here. Yeah, it doesn't matter whether he takes the pawn on h7 first or queen takes b6. We're going to get that endgame either way, pretty forced. And I think it's absolutely fine. But one of their games, therefore, was that endgame, which I've been speculating about for a while, actually. So it was nice to see it actually played out. The other move, which is, of course, quite important, is the rook to d4. I'd only briefly touched on this, I think, before I mentioned, but you can see the whole idea is the rook is going to slide over there to h4 to help the queen. So it's like coming in front of the h-pawn. So instead of this rook being the one which is helping out the queen, this time around it's going to be this rook which helps out. So, of course, there's no chance to take that pawn on e5 now because of rook h4, no way to defend h7. So then what happens is black plays rook e8, so we can facilitate the defender knight here. And, of course, once that knight is back out the way, then the bishop does have the chance to join the attack potentially there once black gets his main action going, his or her main action going down on the b file.
Exactly. And I think I remember that in the episode we covered it, we also had you were showing that it's not working to sneakily go to queen b6 to attack the rook and threaten to take on b2 because the white king can just easily escape and it's no chance to stop queen takes h7 checkmate. And then
quite right. I'm touched just how much you listen to.
Well, after 12 months, something has to stick a little bit.
Oh, you make it sound like a lifetime. Right, okay, rook e8. So rook e8 is what we do to facilitate, obviously, knight f8. Now, in this position here, the main move by far for white is deemed, well, the only way I can make progress is to try to go e6 and mix things up a little bit here. And this is where recently I came across the move knight f6, and I quite like that move, actually. Just simply moving the knight to f6. Pawn takes, pawn, king takes, that's fine. But up till then, we had complications like as follows. For example, there was one variation I remember analysing before. It's crazy, so I'm going to put it in here anyway. Bishop to d3, and white is obviously teeing up, sacrificing here ever since.
Looks dangerous.
It looks dangerous. Knight f8, offering some defence. Oh. And now defense. H4. So now this is definitely looking a little bit flimsy down here. But E5 attacks the rook. The rook can't side over here now. And the bishop could come out to F5 to offer some defense. So white says, no, let's keep going with this H5. So black says, well, let's just hope I don't get checkbaited. E takes D4. H takes G6. And now this clever move, queen to D6, pinning the G pawn. So pinning the G pawn, but this is lovely, right? G takes H7 check. You say, well, what do you think you're doing there? King H8, the king's safe as houses.
So safe.
Completely safe. But is it? It's not
no.
It's not that safe. And then he gets a queen, and then we go here. But then actually there's not many checks going down, probably this one here. But we take it and then take it. And now actually the best thing is just king f8, queen h8, and a perpetual check. Wow. Best is not to try to do things like advance up here and get checkmated. So basically king f8, queen h8. So that crazy line just ends in a draw anyway.
That is massive.
Which is mad. So I was thinking, well, knight f6, you get a game, you avoid all those sort of tactics anyway. So I quite like that knight f6. So rook d4 is nonetheless the other move in that position. So hopefully, so far, we've now looked at the key after rook b8. We've e5, knight d7. We've looked at both rook d4 and we've looked at both h4. So we have those covered. But in this game, White says, no, rook e1. Ian Nepomniachtchi, who only narrowly lost that world or didn't gain that world championship title in the not too distant past, played rook e1. And his logic is, no, I'm not going to sacrifice that pawn there.
His logic.
I might advance it at some stage, and I'm going to continue with my attack. Yeah, nice idea, but it's just too slow, mister. So let's just talk about how Black's going to respond. Now, there's a couple of obvious-looking moves here, and I think the move that was played here just seems super-duper logical, if not necessarily the most accurate move. What he did was he played queen a5, swinging the queen out instantly.
I like that.
I must admit that would have been my instinctive reaction, in actual fact. But it also follows. Let's show. Knight c5 also looks like a great move. The advantage of knight c5, it stops any of this funny business here. Now, let's give a little variation just to show you how this might be good. Suppose on white says, okay, let's go for it. This is what we love to see. This is what people are tuning in for. Racing. I attack you, you attack me. Queen a5, come on. I'm getting ready to attack you. Yeah, I'm going to attack you. h5, bishop f5. And now, the bishop, of course, as we know, looking to defend. But after g4, there's none of that f6 business. Doesn't really work now. But look at this. Rook takes b2.
Oh, how cute.
Yeah. So if they go taking this bishop now with their pawn, we're going to take that knight, and it's going to be all deadly stuff. So the king's got to take the rook. Check. King c1 takes. Now we're threatening.
We're threatening first.
Mate on c2. And we're also threatening the rook on e1.
So rook has to go to e2.
Here, you always ruin something for me.
I'm so sorry.
I mean, who's doing this show anyway? Right. So okay. Well, I'm going to find a lot of check, including knight d3 check will be brought to the picture table in that particular case there. In fact, let's have some fun. This is completely unscripted, of course.
Okay.
I love it. So you're going to say rook e2. Okay. So I'm going to, oh my word, this could be completely nuts. So can we find a win against that? I put it to you that we could find wins.
All right.
Either with knight d3 check, queen a1, queen c1, or rook ba. I just think there's going to be a number of good ideas against that. Yeah. That would be my gut feeling. And I'm sticking with it.
Yeah.
Actually, I can see quite a few nice things. Right. So I tell you what, how about, do you know what we never actually do? We always tell the viewers everything, but how about we just leave it to the viewers to work out a nice win for Black in that position without clicking that button that turns on the engine.
Yeah.
Try and work it out yourself. I'm pretty confident that there would be a number of good wins. I mean, we could even play bishop takes c2, I would imagine, because after rook takes c2, queen e1 check, king b2. Don't forget we've got the cavalry with rook b8. Looks like a little bit of a lawnmower checkmate could even be on its way, could it? Let me show you the lawnmower is one of my favorite. Yeah. So we can see that's threatening one or two tasty discovered checks.
Yeah, you have to take. There's no other way.
Check. Now you've got to go to b2 again. True. The only way. Then rook to b8 check. Now you can't block. Well, you could give up the bishop if it makes you feel better, but that's not really going to help. You're going to have to go a3 and then queen to b4 or queen to a5 for a lawnmower. They both seem to be quite effective.
Quite effective indeed. Yes.
We have passed the test.
Yes.
People at home can say, do you know what? They can actually do calculations on their own. It's not all pre-prepared material. On the hop.
It's not ChatGPT scripted all along. No.
Exactly. Right. So anyway, but back to the main. So I quite like that knight c5 straight away. But he brought his queen out to a5, and you should say, well, come on. Why does it make a difference? I think probably White should maybe take this opportunity now to put that pawn to e6. That's about the only chance he gets in the game. I still think Black's doing quite well. But let's see what he actually does. Well, the queen comes to a5, so now there's issues around this square here. So white decides, better get the queen back to come and help out. But what I know, this is such a big admission that white has failed in their attacking aspirations. And now we do get the knight does come out to c5. Yeah. So now there's a simple threat. For example, well, let's see again. Supposing white played the move h4.
Okay.
Let's see if we can work out what the simple threat is.
Ladies and gentlemen, work out the threat. Pause the video if you want to think a little for yourself. What can black do? Well, I would just say we take on b2.
Oh, no, this is. I don't think you really need me, to be honest, in this. Right. So rook takes b2. Right. So we have rook takes b2, king takes b2, and now knight a4 check, because of course that knight on c3 is pinned.
Now the question is,
yeah, you're gonna. I know what you like to do. You like to count up the pieces, don't you? Is that what's going through your mind? Surely, tell me that's not what's going through your mind. Well, if knight takes knight, queen takes queen.
Yeah, it's not working.
White's got an extra knight and a rook. We've got an extra queen. Plus the king position's ropey. They're losing their rook's attacked, and queen b4 with the knight. I think we can rule that out. Knight takes knight.
We can quickly roll that out. Yes.
Right. So king c1 and knight takes c3. And this is
beautiful,
looking extremely dangerous. But as a spoiler, it's not that much different from the main game. So we won't investigate too much just yet. Okay. Now, if instead white said, no, well, I can't be allowing you to sacrifice down here, so I'm going to go b3 to stop that. Now look at this. Queen a3 check, king b1. Bishop F. Oh, what did I do there? Hang on, I think I must have done something silly. Don't turn away, everybody. You're not really allowed to see this.
Glitch.
There's a glitch. Well,
so
a total glitch.
Let's do this.
Right,
again.
we're back here.
Yeah.
Right, that's the problem with buttons. Right, here we go. Now, queen b3. That's what we just said to block out that line there. But look at this: queen a3 check, king b1, bishop f5. And now, remember what we're talking about? Pinned things.
Juicy.
Pinned pieces never do the job that they were doing before, which means suddenly, whoops, that b3 pawn is looking a little bit tender for possibilities of crashing through with knight takes b3, rook takes b3, or queen takes whatever. We're breaking through. Have we got that? Yes. So that it would also be bad news. So Ian Nepomniachtchi thought, what am I going to do? The other thing he thought is, I think I need to deprive black access to that square there. Truth is, black's got an awful lot of threats. So he played pawn to a3 in this position, keeping the queen out of b4. And white said, well, yeah, that's all very nice for you, but thank you very much. I'm going to do my little breakthrough. Rook takes b2. Of course, that can't possibly be ignored. Queen would take on a3. There's even knight b3 check threatened here, just for good measure. There's a lot of good threats.
True. So
white took it, and then we have knight a4 check, and the king dropped back to a1. So if it went back to c1, knight takes, I think basically the idea is, well, yeah, a very simple threat here, mate. And it's just not easy to stop, really. So white chose to go king a1, and black played knight takes c3. So, of course, now it's pretty clear we're threatening mate in just one move. The queen takes a3. How's he going to stop that? Well, he played queen c1. There wasn't much choice, I don't think, to stop. So at the moment, it's kind of all hands to the pump, just about defending. Is this king okay at the moment? It is at the moment. Black says, is my king feeling a bit nervous? I don't think so right now, okay? So we're carrying on with our own attack, and he just gets his bishop out. Two things. That bishop could become useful along this diagonal, but let's face it, it's all about bringing this guy into the game at the moment. Bishop e6. So highlighting one threat, and then we're going to have more tactics coming our way here. Supposing white just said, okay, bishop d3, rook b8, and h4. Who can spot a forced checkmate in 3 moves in this position.
Oh, beautiful.
This is
I can.
Okay, go for it, Anna.
Shall I? Okay, so
Go for it. I think.
Yeah, for you at home, also try to think a bit again, and I will try to give my solution. I would say Rook B1 check.
Oh, isn't White getting a lot of pieces for that? Let me do the adding. There's a point. Okay, Queen takes Rook.
Queen takes A3 check.
Oh, you're absolutely spot on. You weren't going to go Knight takes Rook. And
No,
Queen.
I beg your pardon.
You had it all on, and then the Queen has to block on A2, and then it's checkmate. Absolutely spot. I was joshing there. So then we would have this Queen A2, Queen takes A2, checkmate. So basically that highlights pretty much what the threat is. Rook B8. So White decides, I cannot allow that to happen. No time for something like Bishop D3. So instead he goes Queen B2, which 2 things behind that. At least on one hand, he's preventing Rook B8, and on the other hand, he's desperately hoping he can play the move Queen B4. Because don't forget, at the moment, White is actually up by, the exchange for a pawn.
Mm-hmm.
Not a whole load, but something at least. But now Black very cruelly says, no. There's not going to be any queen trades coming around on my watch. Stopping Queen B4 and also threatening to go D4. And the point is, there's just very, very little that White can actually do in this position. So he thinks, what else can I do? Can we see any good moves here? Let's see actually what might be. So supposing White played Bishop E2. So, for example, then we'd have D4. And if you're wondering what actually is the threat here, the threat's very simple. Knight A4 is absolutely going to be curtains because the White Queen can't go to anywhere that doesn't prevent Black from going Queen C3 check.
That is so brutal. It's true.
So it is mean, harsh, but fair. Or maybe not the fair bit. And definitely the harsh bit. Right, H4. So instead he played H4 and straight away Black said Knight A4. And do you know what? In this position here, Ian Nepomniachtchi could not bear to continue the game. And he actually resigned. But we're going to show why he resigned. So, for example, if the Queen went to, let's just remind ourselves what the threats are. We've got this and we've got this. So he really needs to move his Queen back to a square where it protects it. If he goes to B1, if he goes to B1, then, for example, we're going to, in fact, C1 and B1 is going to be very similar. So let's look at C1. So Queen to C3 check. No point, of course, coming to the B file because we know what's happening on the B file. King A2, and now we even bring this. And look how lovely this is after King and B1. What I particularly like about this, every single one of Black's remaining pieces have got involved in the attack.
A Bilderbuch-Attacke, as you say in German. Bilderbuch means picture book.
I say that quite a lot. Right, so...
when I'm alone.
Right, look at that. What a lovely... Can you not... That
Absolutely
was a brilliant
stunning,
game.
yeah.
Wow. That's it. So that's it.
That's it.
So hopefully our viewers are becoming quite familiar with this system. I think now, and if they're a Black player that plays the dragon like this, they might be thinking, "Oh, my opponent! I'm looking forward to that knight takes C6, bishop H6 line. Got that all under control now."
Yes, and if you are really caught some fire, as I hope every time in this show, in particular episodes, this is the case, you know what to do. Check out the Chess-Based News article. All the Fritz trainers by Chris are there about the dragon. You go into detail about tons and tons of variations and all of this. So, some
of it even relevant.
It happens occasionally by coincidence. Yeah. Thank you very much, everybody, for watching. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you so much, everyone. See you next time.
See you next time.